Hulk Hogan, we covering you. Do not bleep that. Do not bleep that to make me sound bad.
Tyler did say brother. I'm just joshing around, just joking.
You should bleep it when you say it too. We covering you, brother.
Ooh, hey now, yeah. Come on, let's turn it on. Free friends with tails on 10 Bell Pod. From pile drivers to broken dreams, a little history, a little giggling. They joke, they yell, they ring the bell. Every story's a little neat bit farewell. Legends rise and fade away. And if you don't know, you'll learn today. 10 Bell Pod.
We're all gonna die.
Just eternal dark. 10 Bell Pod. We're all gonna die.
Just eternal dark.
10 Bell Pod. We're all gonna die. We're all gonna die. We're all gonna have some fun. So sing along. It's 10 Bell Pod. 10 Bell Pod. It's 10 Bell Pod.
Welcome to the hood, brother.
Hello, and welcome to 10 Bell Pod, possibly on video, if your app does that. I'm Nick, and I've been training, I've been saying my prayers, I've been taking my vitamins, and honest to God, it is not working. I understand why he did steroids. It's a lot easier. I am joined by stand-up comedian, comic book convention host, the incredibly mortal, any minute now, Tyler Wood.
That's true. I'm aging like dog shit. Thank you, Nick.
And, of course, Northeast Wrestling Hall of Famer, what you gonna do when Man Scout sets up camp near you, Jake Manning.
Oh, I just had a whole bunch of Panda Express, so I'm fat like a pig right now. It took a second to get it, didn't it? Took you a second to get it. It was worth it. It was worth it.
I'm over here gawking.
Let's move forward. Shall we, Nicholas, please?
Okay.
Please, my love sponge is hard.
Fuck off.
This is such a bad segue into such a sincere intro that I spent hours working on. So.
What this series of episodes should have been was a celebration of one of the greatest pro wrestlers to ever live, an absolute icon. And as someone who was an intense Hogan fan for a big chunk of my life, it breaks my heart that that is not the case. Even as I put these episodes together, I felt the nostalgia, the memories, dare I say Hulkamania, and I also felt betrayed, I felt angry, I felt lied to, but most of all, I just felt sad, because it didn't have to be this way. Now, there is no simple one way to discuss Hulk Hogan, and anyone who tries is completely disingenuous one way or the other, full of motives, biases, revisionism going in either direction. So while this series will not be more softening WWE propaganda, it also won't be an outright hit piece, because this story is more complex than that, and that complexity deserves to be addressed. This is someone who became an unbreakable monument. Then by his own hands, Terry Bollea needlessly chipped away at Hulk Hogan's legacy until it was broken. And it's that paradox that made him one of the most divisive figures in the sport's history. But more than any normal sport or any other form of entertainment, in pro wrestling, it is extremely complicated to separate the art from the artist, to separate Hulk Hogan from Terry Bollea. And now at best, the legacy of Hulk Hogan is this tarnished duality that is deeply polarizing. But it wasn't always that way. Today there is an entire generation, maybe 2 or 3 by now, that has only seen a highlight reel of the worst of Terry Bollea. And for them, it's very easy to write off Hulk Hogan. There's also a generation, my generation, and the one before it, where it's tricky. Hulk Hogan was our hero, our moral compass, and sometimes even a father figure in a broken home. A character that went way beyond pro wrestling and ingrained itself deep within our psyches. And while you sure as hell can't call this man all good, to pretend he did nothing positive is as equally delusional and revisionist as the other side of the coin that gives him complete immunity simply because he was their favorite underwear choreographer. The truth is, you can view the character as a Superman that inspired generations, a person that met with Make-A-Wish kids, a wrestler that not just reached, but created the absolute peak of this industry as a face, and then did it again as a heel. You can view the man as a racist, a bigot, and someone that in the end openly endorsed hate, fascism, and the destruction of the working class with a single shirt rip. You can even do all those things at the exact same time. So what do you do when erasure is a gross overcorrection, forgiveness is a problematic shortcut, and just ignoring it all is willful ignorance? What this series will be is one of the messiest things pro wrestling history has ever been. The story of Hulk Hogan and the deeply flawed man that played him, and a lesson that no matter how big you get, how high you rise, if you betray your message, your conscience, and your fans, consequences come, even for an immortal.
I totally agree with everything you just said, Nick. But luckily, this is a comedy podcast, so I think we're allowed to make fun of Hulk Hogan. Like most people get picky, and like this actually might be fun because, sorry, Hulk, you kind of made yourself into a punching bag towards the end, and I like there are lots of stuff that we could say about you, but at the same time too, like, in the mix of all this, much like we did for some of the most awful and horrible people as we've done before, there's some good that you did. You didn't go full Bill Cosby. Like, if that's the nicest thing I could say about you. I mean, there's issues, but yeah, this is going to be, I think we're allowed to make the jokes. We're sometimes, when we talk about a good person, we kind of make some jokes. People get a little touchy because they're dead. There's certain people where I think Hulk is so out there that everything's on the table, good, bad, or indifferent. And so this is going to be a fun little series and a fun little run where the gloves are off and we can be as funny as we want. We can be as serious as we want. And, we can, as long as you remain fair and true, I think this will be a good run we're going to have.
Woo! Before we get started, I think we have 3 bullet points for Hulkamania. Jake is a tiny bit older than me and was a little more consciously aware for the peak of Hulk Hogan. Just behind him was me, who downloaded everything via VHS while simultaneously witnessing the tail end of the Red and Yellow, the rise of NWO, WrestleMania 18, then, the eventual collapse. And then Tyler, who mainly post 2000, so we'll see you in like episode 4.
Try again. I'm after Captain or Mr. America.
Oh God, fuck you. God damn it. That's where you are?
Yep.
I thought it'd be something like, one of them old school wrestlers like Hollywood Hogan. Like, I thought it'd maybe be that. Like,
Nope.
just the tail end of WCW. Nope. Fucking no consciousness whatsoever. Like, a nostalgia act. Probably wonder, like, why is this old dude on my wrestling when I want to watch Eddie Guerrero and Test wrestle each other?
Yeah, I was a testicle. His back fat was well over the back of his weight belt by the time I saw him for the first time.
Skin was hanging on by a thread, too.
Fucking like leather as can be.
With those perspectives, I said my spiel. What are kind of your opening statements on this trial of Hulk Hogan with your two very different experiences?
He's the best wrestler of all time. He's the most prolific. It's depending on the metrics that you use. He has a career that touched wrestling over decades. He was the most popular wrestler of the 80s. He was the person that Vince used to make WWF a national sensation and gobble up all the other territories. He went to WCW and created another phenomenon in the NWO. And after that, he kind of petered out and was embroiled in several controversies, including a sex tape and ensuing trial that ended an internet news company, not the least of which is punctuated by him saying the N-word on video. He was a cultural phenomenon and is a great example of what that means now, is if you let fame fester for long enough, eventually all of your heroes will disappoint you.
Totally agree with that. I'm going to kind of like save like what he becomes later when we get to those spots. But one of the most recognizable wrestlers ever, hands down, without question. Probably the most important. Everybody likes to say like, "Oh, if there wasn't Hulk Hogan, we could have got somebody else." I don't think it. I don't think the alchemy would have been right, and we might not have had wrestling as we have it today. So, gloves are off. Can't wait to start talking about them. So, let's get going.
Terry Gene Bollea was born August 11th, 1953 in Augusta, Georgia, into a working class family with some Italian roots. Dad, Peter Bollea, was a construction worker, and mom, Vernice Ruth Bollea, was a homemaker and sometimes a dance teacher. By contrast, according to Hulkamania promo lore, Hulk Hogan was born on the 8th day of creationism. It was light, the heavens and earth and shit, water, I guess, Adam and Eve, taxes, the noxious hamster wheel of capitalism. 7th day he rested, and on the 8th day, God used all his strength to create Hulkamania, his first WCW promo. So Hulk's thousands of years old. So when Terry was still young, the family moved to Tampa, Florida, where he would grow up. And there Terry found one of his first loves, baseball. He grew up pitching in Little League until he was about 14. And it's people say there was like an injury and he quit before any sort of like high school ball or major competition. He then also got into bowling, and that is basically his entire athletic background. So aside from bowling and baseball, what Terry truly loved was pro wrestling. And I think that is like one of the great tragedies in this story. If you strip away all the bullshit, if you find that rare interview or that rare moment in an interview of Terry just like being a dude, complete mark. Like, he genuinely, truly worshiped the sport, the art. He had a deep respect for those who paved the way for him. And then, he turned into what he turned into, an egomaniac, I guess.
Well, stardom in movies and people telling him how amazing he is for decades did that to him. But early in his life and pretty much everything we're going to discuss in episode 1, cool fucking dude all the way through. Like, just appreciative that he's in wrestling. Happy that it's working so well. Probably even a little content with like, hey, I'll main event this territory. And then about 3 months, I'll move on to another territory, work my way up. Maybe I'll have some stints in New York, stints in Japan. I'll make some money. Maybe this whole wrestling thing kind of wanes down and I run a fishing boat company in Tampa, Florida. Like, I feel like that's kind of the vibe until wrestling in general just utterly, completely exploded. And the idea of being a megastar and a superstar and a movie star just perverted the most innocent part of himself, which was he loved professional wrestling. But you see little bits and pieces of it on the Netflix documentary where the way he talks about watching wrestling in Florida and watching Dusty Rhodes, like, that's not him lying like he does most of the time. Like, that comes from a place of genuineness. And like, if he didn't get into wrestling, he would have been one of those guys that would have been sitting in a lawn chair in his yard with a beer and would offer you one because you're his next door neighbor, and he would sit around and talk about the wrestling he watched as a kid. Like, I feel like that would have been what he would have been if he didn't become what he become. And we'll get into it later, but times I met him, just a fucking dude from Florida at the end of the day. And that's the frustrating part of some of the choices he made in life. Underneath a lot of that, he's just some redneck from Florida. That's like a good dude and will shake your hand and call you by name and make you feel good.
It takes a very strong person to love professional wrestling and get into it and not be muddled down by everything that comes with it, the fame. I mean, you could just break it down to that, like the fame and money. It takes a very strong person to not have all of that change you.
Being from Tampa, he was, of course, in the turf of championship wrestling for Florida. His guy was that old egg-sucking dog, Dusty Rhodes. And, of course, as everyone, it's been said a billion times, he was mesmerized by the look of superstar Billy Graham. And by the time he was in high school, Terry was going to as many live shows as he possibly could. Terry went to Robinson High School, which was also the high school of Dick Slater, Steve Kern, Mike Graham, Austin Idol, at like different times, different years, different classes.
And for history's greatest villain,
Hulk Hogan may have the most endearing pro wrestling origin story of anyone we've ever covered. Despite, growing into a very large frame, in high school, Terry was kind of a dork. He was pudgy, he was insecure, he was a loner, and he was obsessed with pro wrestling and music. That is Terry in his Tyler Wood era, standing in line in a Midnight Rider mask, trying to get Dusty's autograph for the fourth time.
With a string sticking out through the eye hole, going, "Ole?"
Yeah, ole.
Speaking of music, for, all the jokes about how he invented the Gibson Flying V and formed Metallica as a toddler, he was a very serious musician. Like, he reached a level that most people don't get to. After high school, he ended up in Hillsborough Community College and later USF, where he was on the path to become the most intense accountant ever. But he dropped out to play in bands. And, he wasn't just jamming in his garage. He was like getting paid, especially in his band Ruckus, where Hulk played the bass, which is honestly a very humble instrument for Hulk Hogan. You would think like at least lead guitarist, if not lead singer.
And also weirdly thinks that Hulk Hogan has rhythm, because that's pretty fucking important. Because I tried playing bass guitar because it was a couple strings and it was easy, which I'm sure that's why Hulk Hogan played bass. It's like, oh, that's just a few strings, I just gotta that. But my problem was I didn't have any rhythm. But as Linda will tell you, he had some rhythm.
Was he thrusting on 1 and 3?
Maybe. She'll tell you. Have you ever been fucked by a giant before, Tyler?
Between wanting to pursue music and then later wrestling, Terry had kind of a shaky home life. I don't think there was ever like physical abuse between Terry and his dad, but like things were like kind of bad at times. He always like touches on it and then backs out real quick before he really gets into the details. But this was a poor Southern family, and not many of them approve of chasing dreams. Terry also had a brother, Alan, who lived a really short, rough life, and Hulk implied that he was possibly a Hell's Angel, or at least like hung out with them. So I'm sure Dad was a little more strict on kit number 2.
Also, didn't tell his kid he loved him. Surprise, fucking surprise. That leads you to being a pro wrestler, because I'm like 2 or 3 hugs shy of actually not being in pro wrestling. But because my dad didn't tell me that he loved me and didn't hug me 2 or 3 times, here the fuck we are while I'm wearing an AEW hat.
As Terry was pursuing music, he also got heavy into lifting at Hector's Gym in the Tampa Bay area, a place where a lot of wrestlers trained, and he'd also hop on them prayers and vitamins, which were legal at the time, so he was already getting really big before wrestling. But it was that mix of like natural height, that shiny blonde hair, and putting on some muscle that got his band Ruckus recognized by some pro wrestlers, and this is how he gets his foot into the door of pro wrestling. There are several stories of this. First one, wrestlers would go out, they'd wrestle, they'd go out party. Terry's band Ruckus was regionally popular, so they of course played a lot of bars. Wrestlers saw them. That led to Terry meeting some of Da Boys, specifically Jerry and Jack Briscoe. Noticed the big man slapping the bass around 77. They asked him to come train, maybe even brought him out to a couple matches. Again, it's a clusterfuck. Version 2. Well, Ruckus was on stage. Some of the Florida wrestlers were hitting on Hulk's girlfriend. That led to an altercation, and they invited Hulk to the Sportatorium to train. Number 3. Through working out at Hector's Gym, Terry eventually made some acquaintances with the wrestlers. That led to Mike Graham, the son of Championship Wrestling Florida Eddie Graham, setting up a training session, but only for someone to fuck up Hulk, because dating back to high school, apparently Mike didn't like Terry. So it could be a combination of all that shit, but it all leads to Terry Bollea training with Hiro Matsuda.
I love that there's 3 different origin stories for Hulk Hogan. You don't know which one's true. Much like the Joker, they always got those different variations. You don't know what's true. Also, but I like the idea that Mike Graham didn't like him, and he was like, fuck him. Like, that seems like a very Mike Graham thing. I love Mike Graham, and Mike Graham can hold the fucking grudge. So if there was some high school shit that happened and he held a grudge, yes, I for sure see that 1000%, and I love him for it.
I was going through some of the stuff I had coming up in the next month when I was home visiting my family, and I was talking to my dad. And I was like, oh, yeah, here's this thing that I do for this wrestling podcast. And I showed him the outline of this. And he goes, Hiro Matsuda? I know Hiro Matsuda. And I'm like, out of all the fucking people, my dad has no interest in wrestling. I've tried for years to watch stuff with him and asked him about old stuff. And none of it stuck. But apparently when my grandpa used to watch it, out of all the people, Hiro Matsuda fucking stuck out to my dad. So
speaking of which, of your fucking elders all of a sudden dropping like, oh yeah, I really like this about wrestling. My dad, who has had no interest in wrestling whatsoever, and like I said, gave me 2 or 3 less hugs than I needed to be a well-adjusted human being. He just started talking about how much he watched wrestling as a kid and how much he loved it. When he's the same man, when I told him that I got into wrestling, he goes, when are you going to quit that shit and do something real with your life? But all of a sudden, now that I have a house that's being paid for by pro wrestling, he gives a shit about it. Much like he never gave a shit about my wrestling till he saw me on 60 Minutes with Ric Flair. To which my dad went on and on about this wrestler called Bull Bolinski, who was an AWA wrestler, but also a legit truck driver out of Chicago. And he would drink long neck beer bottles in the ring, predating Stone Cold Steve Austin, keep in mind. But that's Bull Bolinski, my dad's favorite fucking wrestler of all time, that I didn't find out until I was a 44-year-old man and a 20-plus year veteran of the Mat Wars.
Is he a fan of his in-ring work, or is he just a fan of Alcoholics?
I think he's a fan of Alcoholics, because he said that he just loved how he got in the ring and just drank all the fucking beer, and then the Crushroom Bruiser would be there and he beat the shit out of somebody. It's he just dudes that in bar fights and some shit.
The Cosby Show. The Dragon has changed the whole picture for me. He's taught me not to run in a rage. He's taught me to conserve the energy. He's taught me not to run wild all week long. He's taught me to set my goals, body, mind, and spirit with his, for one place and time.
Through this, we get that very famous, possibly true, maybe, wrestling class story where Hiro puts his elbow in the middle of Terry's shin, grabs his foot, cranks it back, and fucking breaks his leg. Make him humble. I can't do Iron Sheik's voice.
Fucking bullshit!
This was actually the plan when Tyler joined the podcast, but due to Jake's scheduling and me living in California, we had to pay off a bird scooter.
Gotcha, bitch. but also too, and I think in the Netflix doc it alluded that he'd been training for a while, and then one day, like, he was like telling people he was gonna be a wrestler, and Hiro's like, "Oh no, the fuck you're not!" Like, he was doing everything he was supposed to. But the fact that he was bragging about it, like, "I'm gonna be a wrestler someday," which is, you kind of need that to get through wrestling training, and Hiro was trying to take that from him. I don't know when it happened in his training, because yes, I've heard the story that it was day one. I think he alluded to, like, he'd been training for a little bit and they did it. Point is, Hiro Matsuda broke his fucking leg because he fucking felt like it. Whether that was day 1 or day 32 or day 132, broke the motherfucker's leg because he just didn't like the cut of his jib on that particular day.
It was literally to make him humble.
I always assumed he like did it on accident, and then everyone just like reverse engineered the story to make it seem like badass hardcore. He broke the leg and wrestling training because Hiro just cranked back a little too hard one day, and I don't know, Hulk doesn't drink enough milk.
I mean, that's all plausible. It also could be like a situation of like Hulk was doing something. Like, Hiro might have been wrestling with him and Hulk just wasn't fucking lighting up or listening. Shit like that fucking happens where you're trying to instruct somebody. You're giving your body to somebody. You are instructing them and they're not listening and they're physically hurting you. And you keep telling them, like, "Hey man, like, do it like this, do it like this, do it like this." And you're not fucking listening. And then sometimes, like, it escalates to a point of like, "Dude, you won't fucking do that." Like, I never took it as far as breaking anybody's shit, but I definitely, like, did not put somebody down gingerly one time, and that guy has never fucking forgotten it for the rest of his fucking life. But he was in control of his bump the whole time. I just didn't lightly put him down, or put him down as gently as I would have as somebody that was not squeezing my fucking neck in the back of my head as hard as possible and rubbing his elbow in the back of my skull because he was trying to prove that he was a big man.
It's of the time too when like kayfabe's still very much alive, and like, you know, there's a lot of stories of people around this time that are training, and it's like, yeah, they just fucked them up.
Yeah, I mean, especially if he was telling everybody, "I'm going to be a big famous wrestler," and they're like, "You don't even know this shit's not fucking real, dipshit. I'm going to fucking let you know this is real." If you think you're going to just be like, and that's the thing too, is I can believe that more now, in that he was telling everybody he was going to be a big wrestling star and he was doing well and they hadn't smartened him up yet, or he wasn't fully smart yet and he kind of knew, but he's like, "Well, I'm going to be a big star." And they're like, "Dude, you don't even fucking know this shit ain't fucking real. I'm going to make it fucking real for you, and then you're going to fucking know." Like, that seems about right. That seems like they did it to keep kayfabe. This was a lesson of humility early. Might be one of the last times of humility that he has, is one of the last few big ones.
Yeah, until Iron Sheik fuck his ass.
I mean, those were threats. We didn't see that happen.
No, that would have shut down a whole other website.
So no matter when it happened, Terry took between 10 weeks to 4 months, depending on who's telling the story, to get his leg sewed back shut. He shows back up to, you know, Florida wrestling training and still determined to break into the business. For the next few months, Hiro and Hiro's friends beat the living shit out of Terry. But once they saw he wasn't gonna quit, they sort of chilled out. They scaled it back a little bit. And then when he was like ready enough they called in Eddie Graham to come do a training session, who actually smartened him up to the pro wrestling business, I think after about a year.
And basically, it's very easy to go into. All you need to do is slip your right arm, my left arm, and to get a view from the back so you can see the hammer lock right here. I mean, not a hammer lock, a top wrist lock. Bill, if you'll grab me a top wrist lock. No. Huh? Back this way. Okay, you know, and I don't know why people call it a chicken wing. I've imagined a couple of farmers a long, long time ago saw one fella get hooked up like this.
That friggin' hurt.
And then we can finally get to Terry's first ever match when he started wrestling under a mask as Super Destroyer. Between cage match and a mix of sources, this is kind of a shit show. In Hulk's book, My Life Outside the Ring, he said that his first match was with Brian Blair, August 10th, 1977, Super Destroyer in Fort Myers, Florida. That was also confirmed by Brian Blair, who seems like a trustworthy guy. But there's also this other one like kind of floating around, August 9th, the day before, with Super Destroyer losing to Don Serrano, which could be one of cage matches famous. This didn't even actually fucking happen. But either way, he starts wrestling a day or days before his 24th birthday.
And also, too, like, cage match reports way less matches than I actually wrestled. And because there's all these Georgia South shows that happened here, there, and everywhere in between, and nobody was reporting any of those. And a lot of these territories, there were a lot of spot shows and things like that of the nature where that happened. But definitely, like, I could see him wrestling a Super Destroyer for the reason of, like, hey, this guy's got kind of a good look. Let's not destroy him right away. Let's put him under a mask, nameless, faceless, so he can learn, and then when he's ready, he'll take the mask off.
What kind of world is Terry stepping into pro wrestling-wise in 1977?
Territories are still rocking and rolling. Like, probably the strongest they've ever been. Crockett's doing really well, not as well as they soon did in the 80s, but they're making a living, they're making money. Memphis has got their thing going. There's a lot of other like smaller territories that are doing well enough to exist, maybe not making a ton of money like your Central States and stuff like that. AWA is making exorbitant amount of money in Chicago and the big cities in the Midwest. Portland's still a thing. WWF has got Bruno. There's a couple of territories probably dying. Like I said, there's territories that are surviving and doing well, and like, well, you know, if we just kind of get things going and there's work ahead, you know, like they have a shot. But yeah, we're like 6 to 7 years away from Vince kind of changing the whole world, really, or starting to let guys know that their time is up. So this is it's a good time. Hulk's walking into a world where he's like, I'm going to be here for a while, and then eventually, like, I'm going to go to another territory and make some money here. Like, he's staring down the barrel at a very nomadic lifestyle and having several different bosses. And also, too, this is the time where you made good money as a wrestler and you got out. It wasn't the situation of, I'm going to be a megastar, movie star, and then I'm just going to be The Rock, you know, big blockbuster movie star, or wrestle on television for 20 to 30 years like Hulk ended up doing. It is, you make your money, you save as much of it as you can, and you open up a business to do it in your later years, which is kind of funny that of all people to figure that out, pro wrestlers in the 70s. Like, NFL players can't figure that shit out today. That I'm doing this shit for like a few years, make some money, put it away, and start a business up afterwards with the cachet that I have of being a pro athlete. Like, pro wrestlers in the 70s had it fucking down. And that's, I'm sure, what was at the forefront of Terry's head. Like, hey, maybe he's even thinking like, hey, I will make some money as a wrestler and then I can go back to this band shit, and maybe because I'm a famous wrestler in these places, my band makes more money, and that's a thing I can do going from there. That's kind of what he's probably staring at, because the world hasn't changed yet.
Under the Mask Super Destroyer, wrestled around Florida for about 2 months. Then from roughly 1978 well into 79, things basically go dark because Hulk Hogan quit wrestling for the first time. The pay was bad. He actually made more playing music. The training under Hiro was a lot, which that's a story almost everyone agrees with. So to quote Hulk's 2016 Facebook post, I quit wrestling for a year to run a bar, the Anchor Club in Cocoa Beach, Florida. And I also ran a gym called Whitey and Terry's Gym. Tyler, quickly give me jokes about that name.
Does he have multiple personality disorder? It's him and his hair. Probably the only person he's ever done good business with. Someone named Whitey. How's that? There's 3 for you.
All right, thank you. By 1979, though, Hulk had connected with BFF Ed Leslie, who you may know as Dizzy Golden, the Man with No Face, the Zodiac, the Booty Man, Brute Force, or simply Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Terry is roughly 4 years older than Brute, who was the little brother of one of Terry's friends. So they kind of knew each other from life a little bit. But later, Ed worked out with Hogan, possibly the story changes, helped him run that gym. And as the two were getting jacked, they thought, shit, we could be a tag team. If it were 2026, they just would have started a shitty Manosphere podcast and tried to sell you energy drinks and authoritarianism.
Oh, 1000%. Without question. Not even a joke, Nicholas. Fucking wonderful commentary on society. Instead of becoming one of the most successful pro wrestlers of all time, you become a shitty fucking podcaster who may or may not be named in a fucking child sex ring.
So their pitch was brothers, brother. And apparently, under the help of superstar Billy Graham, they landed in Southeastern Championship Wrestling as the Boulder Brothers, Eddie Boulder and Terry Boulder. There are match listings as early as April 79 for Terry, and then by May 79, they're basically on the grind. I'll speak up for brother Brudai for a second, which is not a sentence I ever thought I'd say. If you consider the full spectrum of Ed and Terry's relationship, all the spots Hulk gets for him, it makes a lot more sense. That's like his boy, Brutus was obviously given spots on cards and with companies that maybe should have went to someone else. But honestly, I'm doing that for my friends too, in a heartbeat. That's show business. Entertainment's 40% talent, 60% who you know. And Ed just happened to know the best pro wrestler he can possibly know.
Yeah, but as a kid, he's what? I don't give a shit about Bruce Barber Cake. But looking back at it and then hearing the story that how much of a friend he was to Hulk, and obviously, you just said it, Hulk was running a gym and a bar. He was out of it, and it was fucking Ed Leslie, hey man, why don't you get back in it? Just give it a shot, man. And just by his words of encouragement and just his being there led you to have this amazing, wonderful, extravagant life where you had sex with Linda Hogan all the time. When you owe so much to that man because of all those good things have been laid at your door, his friendship alone and being there, it is worth tagging along for. And then also too, when you're as famous as Hulk was in a lot of those spots, you kind of need a friend that knew you when you were nobody. And it's sad they never patched it up the way they needed to, because they were good friends.
They didn't sit down over a real American beer.
Throughout 79, the Boulder Brothers started bouncing between Southeastern and mostly Alabama, and also Memphis's Continental Wrestling Association, not to be confused with Continental Championship Wrestling, which Southeastern later turns into. Also, too, I think I've mentioned it a time or two before on here, when I got the Michael Gratchner footage. Michael Gratchner was this super fan out of the Chicagoland area. He had
rigged up a still camera, like apparatus that also recorded 8mm film, but it looked like a really heavy duty still camera. And he actually ran like Bob Backlund's fan club, and through that relationship with Bob, he was able to parlay a relationship with like wrestling promoters to take pictures at ringside and sell to the wrestlers later, but also he was secretly recording 8mm film, and we at High Spots got our hands on it. And in that footage, in that film, you see the Boulder Brothers coming out to the ring, I believe with Jerry Lawler or to fight Jerry the King Lawler. I don't remember exactly. There was one point in time where you had Hulk Hogan and Brutus the Barber Beefcake as the Boulder Brothers, and Jerry the King Lawler was in the frame, as well as a young photographer in Jim Cornette. So in this one frame, you had basically these four soon-to-be household names in professional wrestling. Because like I said, this is well before Jerry did the Andy Kaufman thing. This is well before Cornette was even a manager, before, you know, Terry was Hulk, and before Ed was Brutus. And here they are on this 8mm footage just secretly recorded in Memphis. And it was definitely at the Memphis Coliseum. I know that much for sure, because I recognized the little walls in the background and they had all the lights on. So it's pretty easy to spot.
Back down in Alabama, Terry got NWA world title shots at Harley fucking Race across multiple towns in 79. And then Terry would get his hands on his first title, albeit just a weak title reign, when he picked up the NWA Southeastern Heavyweight title from Ox Baker, June 6, 1979, which had to have been just a crazy match. Terry dropped it right back off on the 13th to Austin Idol.
Or seeing Austin Idol and be like, let me steal your essence. Like, Austin Idol was ahead of the fucking game, and he references Superstar Billy Graham, but he doesn't reference Austin Idol enough because he completely lifted that from him. But the thing is, though, Austin was doing that shit like before it was time to do that shit. So if Austin was I said at the beginning, if Hulk Hogan wouldn't have come around, then there might not have been wrestling the way it is. But if you put Austin Idol in the same spot and it put his prime to match up with the times you needed Hulk's that prime to happen, maybe. I think he had size enough, but it's hard to tell because he's wrestling Jerry the King Lawler all the time. So like, you look like a mountain of man next to Bill Dundee. Like, but also too, like, Lawler's like roughly my size. So I think Austin Idol would have enough size that it would work. He might not have been as big and wore the trunks that Vince wanted, because that would be desirable for Vince. And Austin really couldn't wear trunks. I think he burned his legs real bad in the plane crash, which is why he went to the Austin Idol gimmick. He also wouldn't have been able to put up with the WWF schedule. So I guess there would have been some flaws in that line of thinking. But yeah, like, Austin Idol was ahead of his time. He had the blueprint of what wrestling would be in the 80s.
Like the plane crash, like with Flair?
No, this is a different one. This is the one that killed Bobby Shane, the guy that gave Jerry the King Lawler his crown.
No shit. Okay.
Yeah, and I think Gary Hart was also in this one. They crashed in like in the Bay of Tampa. I was gonna say in the Tampa Bay. Like, they crashed, and I think like Austin, like, somebody, either he saved somebody or somebody else saved him, but he really messed up his legs, like, real bad, like to the point they didn't think he was gonna walk again, let alone have a wrestling career after that.
Here-ish, we get the Lou Ferrigno story. Terry and Lou were on a talk show. This isn't like Carson. This is a very small-time local show. I'm sure Cornette has it on DVR, but I couldn't find it. Either way, at this point, Hulk was massive. He had prayed and vitamined himself well over 300 pounds. And He made this appearance beside Lou, star of the series The Incredible Hulk. He was the Incredible Hulk when he got mad. The host apparently commented that he was bigger than the actual Hulk, who was no slouch. Lou Ferrigno was like a legit ass bodybuilder and shit.
Legit, almost Mr. Universe. If fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't exist.
It was destined for a guy with a weird accent.
Actually, if I'm not mistaken, when Arnold retired, I think Lou did get Mr. Universe. Yeah, I think he actually won it. I think there was a time that once Arnold started doing movies full time and he couldn't dedicate himself. Yeah, 2 consecutive Mr. Universe titles. He just didn't win it when Arnold was there. So he could have been one of the best fucking Mr. Universes of all time. It's not that he wasn't good in his own right, but he could have been dominant.
So Hulk is billed at 6'7", fucking. But what do we think the actual height he had was?
I got into the weeds on this. You know, it's hard at the end of his life.
6'5" at least.
His spine had been so compressed, but I think he was still like 6'4". So I would say like a shoot like 6'6" probably. I mean, he was big. He was a tall guy.
I mean, and that would prompt the host or people to say that he was bigger than Lou Ferrigno. Lou Ferrigno was 6'5". So if Hulk was 6'6", and I from the time I met Hulk, I could see him being about 6'4", which would explain the compression of the spine. So if he was lost 2 inches through the years, that would make sense. But if you told me he was 6'4" when I was standing next to him, I would kind of tend to believe that.
So according to Scott Bowden's Kentucky Fried Wrestling, I don't know if you guys know what that is. There's a show program from Jerry Jarrett's show, July 23rd, 1979, Mid-South Coliseum, that has the first ever Terry the Hulk Boulder on the cover. Also, they say that it was Jerry who gave Terry the Hulk name after seeing the show. And then also there's a version that says Marty Jannetty saw the interview and said that Terry should be the Hulk, but that is super not true, because Marty Jannetty in 79 was 19 years old and didn't start wrestling until 1983. This is what's on Wikipedia. People who just read the Wikipedia for content. There's no way Marty Jannetty did this.
Either way, who cares? Like yeah, the Hulk was a big comic book character, and you saw Hulk Hogan, you went, you're big, like the Hulk. Who fucking cares? It's the laziest connection that's ever been made, and honestly, I'm surprised there's been no. Was there any like copyright shit between Marvel Comics and Hulk Hogan?
In WWF, yeah.
Yeah, because they were. Here's where the issue lies. When you're, and we'll take a little legal moment, because I have had legal training when it comes to copyrights. Also, too, in college, I studied under a guy who wrote a broadcasting law book, so I understood a little bit of things about copyright and trademarks. Also, too, I worked for a man that specialized in copyright and trademarks, so he could find ways around that and make money off people's names without them knowing about it. Essentially, it's like, what lane does it exist? Like Hulk Hogan and the idea of the Hulk, you know, that's copyrighted for television, comic books, but you got to put that in the copyright. So I imagine Marvel Comics, they copyright it. So they copyright it for the idea of television shows, comic books, movies, but they don't have it in licensing for action figures. They'd have to update the copyright and include for merchandise as well too. To which then that's where the issue would come in when WWE starts doing merchandise. But prior to that, where he's just Hulk Hogan, a wrestler, that's fine. And he's just called the Hulk, and he's a wrestler because the copyright doesn't say anything about live performances because it is a fictional comic book character. So they can't really copyright live performances because it's only in the usage of comic books, movies, television shows, and merchandise. That's a pretty standard thing when you put in for copyrights. And the fact that you just have this person over here Like you could have a band you could have a musical band, The Hulk, and you're probably going to be fine. You could just be like, we're the Hulk and we're the band, and go forth. I'm the Hulk and I'm the wrestler. You probably you can get away with that because it's a completely different medium. So much like when I tried to had the tag team name with me and Grizzly Redwood, call ourselves the Great Outdoors. Well, that's obviously copyrighted for a movie, but as a tag team wrestling name, that is a completely different genre and not under the copyright. We might have already mentioned it, but like the whole filming the video with Hulk and Jerry Jarrett's like house. I love how Jerry Jarrett's like house was like used for multiple vignettes and introduced some of the most popular characters of all time. Like basically like have the Fabulous Ones in Jerry Jarrett's bath and the upstairs area. And then you had Kamala coming out of the woods in Jerry Jarrett's place. And Jerry Jarrett's got the Hulk on a table and filming him like he's chiseled out of granite, and you only saw that in the small territory days. Now everything is in such a studio, and even indie stuff, they'll like, we got to get an area and light it very well. But just this whole thing of like, come over to my house, let's film some shit. Like after ECW and Paul Heyman, like you didn't get that anymore. We went over to the promoter's house and you cut promos in unique ways and tried to stand out.
While it was Memphis that gave us the birth of the Hulk, Southeastern gave us the first look of what a Hogan versus Andre feud would be like, just backwards. Andre is, usually a face before WrestleMania 3, and Hogan at the time was a heel. May 5th, 79, they had this like big arm wrestling challenge on their version of their TV with a big build up. Hogan flipped the table, and they had a series of matches. By spring and into summer of 79, Hulk was in CWA full-time, sometimes tagging with Brutus, but also getting a lot of singles work against people like Sonny King, Ron Bass, the Blonde Bombers, and even worked with the fabulous Freebirds. And I bet it was Michael Hayes who taught him that word.
And also taught him how to snort cocaine, because that's what you have to do. That's what Michael Hayes is known for, is snorting cocaine.
Despite just being crowned as the Hulk, Terry then headed down to Georgia Championship Wrestling fall of 79, where Terry wrestled as Sterling Golden. Ole Anderson also possibly could have taught him that word.
What word are you talking about, Nick? You keep beating around the bush.
Brother.
Oh, I see.
Some pretty crazy names he wrestled here. Stan Hansen, Tony Atlas, Andre again. And he also had matches with Bret Hart, who in the doc was on fucking fire. He said, and I quote, "I knew more about wrestling then than Hogan knew his entire life," or something like that. If I was going to write a satirical character of Bret Hart, it just would have been Bret Hart in this documentary.
We all have to remember he has brain damage. We all have to remember he had a stroke. But god damn it, like, it's so bitter, but it's so spot on.
All right, so you don't really think of Hulk Hogan as like a territory guy, because this part of his career is so often like yada 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 to fit the narrative of Vince McMahon carrying Hogan in his belly for 9 months and birthing him as the one true savior of pro wrestling. But like he at least did like a little speed run here of the old school territories. Like that is where he came from. He wasn't grinding the NWA circuit like Flair or the Funks, but he did it, and he gathered up all the tools he needed to become Hulk Hogan one day.
Also, too, he gathered up all the tools that he later used as Hollywood Hulk Hogan, because you look at all those matches as a heel, and literally he is doing every territorial heel, beg off, chicken shit thing you can do. And I'll tell you what, those matches, pretty fucking entertaining. Especially after you'd seen him just do the same babyface match over and over again, to then see him do the chicken shit heel match, and you really want to see him get his ass kicked for everything he said, like, pretty fucking spot on, man. Those matches were a lot of fun.
By December 1979, Hogan would go on to have his first run with the Fed, which at the time was also a territory. And with that, we will end Hulk Hogan Part 1 and see you next time on Hulk Hogan Part 2, where we will get into his first WWF run, a little bit of Japan and AWA. But before we get out of here, do you guys have anything?
Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate any type of support, whether you're a patron or you just listen to every episode, you're on your second listen through. If you're checking out the YouTube, we appreciate whatever. Please be sure to drop a 5-star review. It really helps us against all of the Conrad Thompson podcasts of the world. And Jake, what do you got?
Thank you, as Tyler said, to everybody who joined Patreon, especially executive producer of this show, Miles Kane, out of the Pacific Northwest, if I'm not mistaken. Or if I remember correctly, he's out of the Pacific Northwest. To which, if you weren't at the AEW shows in Portland and Seattle, shame on you. And if you weren't there, this company man will hunt you down and put a ticket in your hand next time. Thank you for being a producer on this one, Miles. We appreciate you greatly. As always, folks, make sure you leave a review. Also, too, make sure you pay attention to the non-trio episodes, like the deep dives that Nicholas is doing. Those are important. Nick's doing a lot of in-between episodes to keep us out there and rolling, and it's extremely important that you keep listening to those episodes, and you're going to get a lot of wonderful, great nuggets. And, you know, Nick, as you know about this podcast, will do a deep dive on everything. So he's shedding a light to people of wrestling and stories in wrestling that you aren't hearing about on all the other podcasts. But if you just want to talk about Bash at the Beach, Hulk versus Jeff Jarrett for the millionth fucking time, then guess what? I got a mortgage guy for you. But we are not those guys, and Nick is of a different cloth. So if you want to know about a deep dive of wrestling history, make sure you pay attention to those in-between episodes.
Yeah, come listen to Imperial Firpo, motherfucker.
Yeah, subscribe on YouTube, Patreon. We have a Pro Wrestling Tees store. And other than that, we will see you for fucking Hulk Hogan Part 2.
Actually, funny enough, just had a conversation with Shad this weekend.
Oh, what did he say? Don't fucking look at me.
Oh, no, actually, Shad is cool as shit. It was a weird thing where he had questions, and I was the only one that could answer them. But also, too, I had to go do some more work, and the questions were about, like, why aren't people doing this work? And I was like, I'm in the middle of it. It was kind of like a weird thing. Like, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's what I want you to do. Like, and it was he's a very interesting fellow. I would love to talk to him more. I answered his questions as quickly as possible. It was mostly about he felt like we should have more people behind the table at the merchandise booth, but those are like run by the building, and the building only staffed 2 people for me. They were supposed to have 3, but somebody called out, and he was looking at like, oh, lines, they're bad. But, you know, lines mean people want to come get the stuff. And as long as people don't have a problem waiting in lines, as long as when they get to the front of the line, the things are there. And I was putting the stuff in the stand to make sure that when they got to the front of the line, it was there. And that was kind of the point, like I was trying to make. And then I asked a couple other questions and stuff like that. But then also, too, like, he did the same thing with food and beverage. He goes, why are these food and beverage people? They should have more people behind there. He was like a billionaire, like, trying to figure out how the Peoria Civic Center could operate better. And I really wish I could have just walked around with him and the way that he found it, and the idea of him looking at customer service in the aspect of transactions is completely different than how his son thinks about the wrestling business. And I wish he would, to be really quite honest, I wish he came around more and saw more stuff, because I feel like if he was around it and observed more stuff, like more of the right stuff would happen. I think he's a very smart businessman just by the 5 minutes that I was around him. And I say this all the time when people ask me about Tony Khan and just the Khan family in general. And because people are always like, well, what if, like, you know, it just comes to an end and Tony doesn't do it anymore or whatever, he's a billionaire, he could lose interest or whatever. On New Year's Eve, all of the billionaires of the world park their yachts at St. Bart's. And Shad Khan is no different. New Year's Eve, he has his big, expensive yacht parked in St. Bart's, and he's looking to have a good time on New Year's. But fucking Tony Khan was in Omaha, Nebraska to put on 5 hours of professional wrestling. And there's no place in this fucking world where he'd rather be than in Omaha, Nebraska on New Year's Eve, putting on 5 hours of professional wrestling. He could be on a yacht in St. Bart's on New Year's Eve, but no, he'd rather be fucking producing television wrestling on New Year's Eve. And that's who he is, and that's why I like working for him.
Do you guys remember where you were when you got the news that Hulk Hogan died? Because I remember vividly.
I was in the back of a lift on the way for a very nice bike ride down Lakeshore Drive in Chicago. So I was about ready to have a really good day, and it turned out to be just the most awesome day ever. Not because of Hulk Hogan died, but the weather was so beautiful, and it was a really nice day. I should have brought my swim trunks. It would have been tidy whities in honor of Hulk Hogan, I guess. So, because that's all he apparently wore around his house was just banana hammocks around the way, and that's what I wear when I go to the beach too. So I could have worn that in honor of him that day.
I was on my couch, and Spencer ran in, and she was like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I was like, "I thought like fucking mom died or something." And she was like, "Hulk Hogan died," and I was like, "Nah," because at that point, I had mourned him.
Well, she probably was just like, "Aren't you from Monroe, North Carolina? Shouldn't you agree with all of his views?"
She has said that more than once.
Oh boy.
The LA in her is very strong. So yeah.
I was sitting on a toilet in a Residence Inn in Raleigh, North Carolina, because it was during GalaxyCon Raleigh. And I was super disappointed that I texted you guys as soon as I found out, and you already knew. You both already knew.
When you run this podcast, you get a lot of text messages when someone dies.
I mean, I've got dirt sheet. I've got dirt reach. I have dirt
Sheet writers are